Yes.
How do you see that evolving? We were speaking gatekeeper ago. How do you see that evolving for you?
Well, my hope is that it will continue to evolve from an individual to a number of individuals so that there will be a greater presence of African American representation in government, in business, and other important facets of the community. I don't want to see a cycle where you have an African American leader who is standing up and who is representative of the best that comes out of our community, only to be polarized against, being the symbol of everything that's wrong, and having the community look at him or her as the reason that things are not well. In other words, it's easy to make a person a lightning rod or a scapegoat for what underlying issues exist in our community. And we need to confront those issues, be honest about it, and not use Goliath or any other person who is a public servant and a very effective one as a person that we can use to sacrifice him for the sake of appeasing certain interest groups who are heated and angry in the aftermath of a killing or any other kind of incident.
So if I understand you correctly, you'd replace Bill Davis's ex-officio role with the group?
Absolutely. There are a number of gifted individuals, some he has personally mentored, as Don McQuaid mentored him, that are prepared and fully capable of being a part of the city's administration and giving voice and leadership in ways that will enhance the community, specifically African American community, and bring it on par with the wider community in terms of economics, education, and other avenues.
Has this been set back race relations in the city?
Well, I think that the future, the response by Mayor Fisher in terms of how he deals with Dr. Davis's position and influence and outreach to the community, how that's dealt with is going to speak volumes to how the community responds, because the decentralization of his office and the authority and the focus to lower city departments where people won't get the same input or results will be a step in the wrong direction.
Mr. President, the NAACP has a long tradition of galvanizing action around the dramatic event. Clearly, by the size of this group, the firing of Dr. Davis is a dramatic event. What would you request of this community to support the initiatives of the NAACP to carry out and continue its legacy of facing injustice and designing strategies to overcome the negative effects of injustice?
Well, in response, and that's a good question. In response to that, there are 4 pillars of the NAACP: the black press, the black church, black business, and the membership. And every part of our community can be involved, and we need them to be involved, so that the persons in power, both state, locally, nationally, and otherwise, will understand that it's not just individuals like Go Davis or myself who they have to contend with, but we represent a larger grassroots movement that's speaking to us and saying what they need and what they demand. Secondly, we need those persons that are viewing this press conference to understand that we are very resolute in not going backward, and that the NAACP's role is to negotiate, and where that fails, to agitate, and we are prepared to do that. Absolutely.
Take advantage of this galvanized energy.
Absolutely. First and foremost, on next Tuesday, we have a gathering of ministers, pastors that we've invited from all over the city, specifically African-American part of the city, to come together and formulate ways that we can be effective as churches and congregations in our community. Secondly, today, when we met with a number of civic leaders, 2010 and others, we have made it our business that we're going to come together for strategic planning sessions, and we're going to do it in the sunshine. This won't be a group of, or a clique, if you will, of a few individuals. We want the community, when we when we come to them and ask them to tell us what the needs are and then express to them our plans, we want everybody to be a part of that, because we're not just going to need you when the crisis occurs. We're going to need you on a continuous, strategic basis that represents a movement rather than a reaction.
The civil rights movement also brought other communities in.
That's it. I can recall in 1997 when I was appointed chief, I stood in the St. Pete Coliseum and I had a series of questions about an individual, and those questions were designed to have me denounce as opposed to look for common ground. And I didn't denounce because I said earlier that I believe in inclusion and inclusiveness. I'm perhaps the only, I was, member in City Hall who had the ability to talk across this community with all different types of individuals and organizations, because I emphasize inclusiveness. I got a note here earlier for the NAACP. Now, if I were worried and smart, I would reflect back on 1997 when I got kicked and called all kind of names because I didn't denounce. I wouldn't acknowledge or let this man come up to this podium. But because I'm not made that way, I will just say that he's going to be appropriately brief, but he has a statement, and that's none other than one I can talk to Omali Ishitella.
First of all, I want to thank you, Chief, and say that I am going to be brief. I'm going to be brief because we're going to be making our statement in this community within the next few days to this community, organizing, mobilizing. Secondly, I want to say that when we talk about the story that Mayor Foster has provided us for why he fired Goliath Davis, I'm reminded of the number of stories that he told about why he destroyed that house that Lacey was in. I believe him as much when he talks about what happened to Goliath Davis as I believed him then, as this community believed him then. Also, I want to say that we can't pretend that our community has not been one that has been under siege constantly, historically, by the St. Petersburg Police Department, and that the only relief we ever had from that was when Goliath Davis was chief of police. The reality is when we talk to Foster or anybody else about making changes in the department, about putting this Negro there or that Negro there, making sure something happens, I want to suggest to you that we've just come through a process where he just fired an African. He still has that power. And that the real problem is that this society, this system, will allow us as individuals to succeed, but it's always at the expense of the group. It will not allow the group to succeed. And when Goliath Davis would not participate in collaborating against the group, then he had to go. So that what we have to do as a group is to achieve our own power, so that when something like this happens, then as a group we are capable of delivering some kind of consequence. Otherwise, it will happen over and over and over again. Now, I meant it when I said I was going to be brief. Our statements are going to be made throughout this community here. But I think that everybody should be aware of this. I've seen listen to the hostility, the subjective response from this force that calls itself media. That's supposed to be so objective. The hostility is open and naked. But everybody should be aware of this thing, that there are a group of people in this room and different organizations who have nothing in many instances in common with each other. We don't agree with each other ideologically, politically, on a lot of different things. But all of us have come together with this agreement that Goliath Davis has fallen because he represented this community to the best extent that he could. And that this community stands with him, and we stand with this community. Our community is a good community. You understand that? Our community, this community is a good community, a heroic community. We will not bow our heads down to any reactionary who has a problem with African people. I'm moving, but I want to remind everybody. You remember Elder Jordan, who is the one who gave the property for Manhattan Casino, for Campbell Park, for Jordan Elementary, for Jordan Park? A black man did that. And listen to me. Even as they denounce our people who live in those same housing projects, when this city went bankrupt during the Depression, Elder Jordan, a black man, is the one who loaned them the money to let the city function. So we don't bow our head down to anybody. This is a proud community, and we stand up to everybody and are willing to struggle in defense of this community. Uhuru! All power to the people, and black power to the African community.
I'll tell you one thing, if I wasn't fired already, I would be after that. I like to acknowledge my pastor, Pastor Brian Brown. One last question, and then we're going to call it. One last question.
This may be the most difficult question today, but in light of everything that's been said today, and in light of the comments we just heard, a few moments ago you said that you're not the kind of person to denounce anyone. Can you find anything positive to say about the man who inspired you and ended your career in the city government?
I'm glad. The question is, I'm glad that question followed my introduction of my pastor. Okay? Because I can tell you in no uncertain terms that if my mother was sitting there and my pastor is here, so she would attest to it too. You know, you don't be reared in the faith and not look for deep redeeming qualities in anyone. So I may not agree with his actions, but I wish no one any ill harm. Thank you all. Thank you.